the worst thing is that it is increasing. Like the interannual data is constantly increasing. Now people are expecting for this year maybe to reach about 140 or 150% annual inflation.
140?
Yeah.
I haven't even heard that number. I heard like 104 maybe. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to Undoctrination. My name is Maggie, and I am joined this week by my friend Noé Kaplan. And we actually met while I was on my month-long trip in Argentina. Noé, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It is so good to see you again. How is everything?
Hi, Maggie. Well, first of all, thank you so much for the invitation. I'm really happy to be here and share the Argentinian experience. There are lots of lessons and things to talk about. So, I am really, really excited to be here and, talk about all the things that happen because, like Argentina can be like a whole new world by itself.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting.
It really is. So I grew up with like very little understanding of what actually went on in Argentina. I feel like when I first was dreaming up of like places I wanted to visit in the world, it was usually like pretty much Europe. I grew up in a place where people didn't really travel much. Like if we were to travel, I'm from Louisiana, by the way, which is like a very like small state. When people would travel, we would go like 2 states over. That's kind of like provinces in Argentina. We would go 2 states over to the beach, and that was pretty much it. That was like the big excitement for people. So international travel was never something I thought I would be able to do. But I had the opportunity to go to Argentina for a month and got to meet you, of course. That was amazing.
Awesome.
For those of you wondering, so Noé and I met through the Foundation for Economic Education because he was part of our Hazlitt program. Do you want to tell them a little bit about what that is for anyone who might be interested in applying?
Sure. Well, the Hazlitt project, basically, it's like a special training session, which is for about 3 months. It's done in English, in FI in the US, and it's also done in Spanish for Latin America. So, I joined FI in the Latin America version, and you've got like all the backup, all the advising, all the necessary training required so you can develop like your own personal brand and start talking on social media and spreading content that you are like more specialized in, basically related to economics, but also a little bit of politics, a little bit of philosophy. And the main idea is like to become a better person in order to communicate and share ideas of freedom in an easy way. So, basically, personally, it was like super helpful and important to me. So, I would really recommend you for the ones who are seeing this episode, like if you want to share in a better way or you want to improve your own personal skills and you're interested in learning the ideas of freedom, and also meeting wonderful people, because if it wasn't for this program, probably you and I wouldn't have met either.
Yeah.
So if you want all this kind of magic to happen, I would really recommend you to join the Hazlitt project. I don't know if they're going to make it at the end of this year. There were some talks about it, but for sure next year there will be like another selection and casting for the Hazlitt project.
Yeah, I'm so glad, by the way, that they did a Spanish version of the Hazlitt Project, because when I was coming to Argentina, I really wanted to reach out and meet people, and I got to meet so many people involved in the liberty movement, but getting to meet you especially was really nice because it was good to hear from the perspective of another young person who understands the ideas super, super well and like really has a good grasp on what is happening to the economy in Argentina. Because for at least my generation here, our problems, our economic problems are kind of different than our parents because we're just getting our footing in the world. And I would assume it's the same in Argentina. And, if you could super quickly give us a quick rundown on what is actually happening, because I don't think a lot of people know very much about Argentina and don't really know why we would be even talking about it, right? Because it's not one of those countries where we're like, oh, communism has come in and absolutely destroyed it, because you don't have like a communist dictatorship in power. You have a democracy, but things are going really, really poorly. So I think it's an important story to tell. But if you could give it in your own words, kind of a basic rundown of what's going on.
Okay, yeah, so it's a little bit complex, but the general idea, which is like common to many Latin American countries, is that for really a long time, we had like this really big government, which is a democracy. We have elections, like really normal. Justice has like its own problems. It's not quite independent, but more or less it works. So you could say you have like a normal country, a normal economy, but the problem, like especially in Argentina, that we have like the idea of social justice through big government and lots of regulations and lots of government intervention, like even in like ridiculous stuff, to a point where the economy like becomes so tightened, and the possibilities of production and prospering and innovating are like with the passing of time reducing more and more. And the thing is that especially in Argentina, the situation has become worse because we throughout the middle of the 20th century onwards, we had like politics divided around one political figure whose name is Juan Perón, which I don't know how much known is it in the US, but in Argentina it has shaped all the politics like in a really black and white the way like to be seen. Like you are in favor, or you are a Perón supporter, or you are a Perón sort of hater or opposition, and like there's no way out of that.
There's no in between. Like either you're loyal or you're a traitor to the Peronist cause.
And the thing that it's like so complex to understand is like that the Peronist movement doesn't have a special ideology. It's not that you could say like Perón is like, I don't know, Trump or Biden or Obama. It's like Obama and Trump on a same person. So who could support him? Well, anyone. Like it can adapt to any ideology. So the problem is that this figure was Perón personally was a military general. He was a populist figure who had like some ideas which were like, he sympathized with many sorts of dictators in the style of Franco or even Mussolini. He didn't implement a hard dictatorship in those terms, but still he was a little bit harsh and was like involved as the producer or as the victim from a state coup or a state overthrow. So
he overthrew a government to get into power. Like he overthrew whoever was currently in power.
Yeah, like democracy had some interruptions along the 20th century. He was one of the members of the militia that threw the first democracy that was overthrown, which was in 1930. But at that time, he wasn't so popular. His popularity was gained during 1945. And the interesting thing, it was that the first time he got as president, it was in a democratic election. But then
Yeah.
It was like a constant combat and conflict between Perón and other staff of the military who was against him at times and sometimes in favor. So you've got like this whole social conflict, and like nowadays, this figure has like somehow merged like in a different way. Now it's not so like politic in measure, but it's like more symbolic. Like people say, well, I like Perón because it's like the idea that in my
He's like
imagination.
the spirit of Argentina.
Yeah, like a spirit.
Yeah.
And the thing is that there is like a government right now who has been in power about 16 of the last 20 years, which are like the Kirchner family, especially. So
We're going to get into that because the Kirchners remind me of a very powerful political couple in the United States. I think the Kirchners might be worse, but they remind me very much of Bill and Hillary Clinton. Like I don't know how much you know about them. Obviously, they haven't been like prosecuted for any crimes like the Kirchners have, but lots of shady things, you know. And it's the same kind of political couple. But Christina Kirchner, I heard her name more than I even heard the name of the president in Argentina. It seems like the political culture there gets fascinated with like certain figures and names, and then kind of the entire political culture revolves around that name. So like Kirchner is like the very biggest one that I've heard.
Yeah, you described it like exactly right. Because the Kirchner family would be like Perón's family 2.0, like the 21st century, like that would be the new wave of Peronism. And the thing with, this family, like all politics go around them, like in opposition or in favor of them. And the main problem with this is like you've got a lot of fanatic supporters. And when you see like fanatic supporters, it's not about content, it's not ideas discussion. It's just we support these people because it is the supreme leader and we go with the leader no matter what.
It's like a safety thing, right? Because we haven't really gotten into it yet, but Argentina's economy is in like a severe crisis, and pretty much every month the peso gets devalued dramatically. So to put it in perspective for you guys, we suffered from like 8% inflation over the past year, or at least that's how much we had hit back in 2022, like around this time last year. We had hit 8% inflation year over year, and people were losing it. Like we were freaking out at the gas stations, at the grocery stores. A lot of people dropped out of the middle class. Like things were going haywire. The Federal Reserve stepped in, stopped running their money printers as much, and caused inflation to go down a little bit and interest rates to go up. So I wouldn't say we're out of the woods, but things are a lot better. You guys, okay, how much was year over year inflation for Argentina last year?
Well, last year, annual inflation got up to 94%. Right now,
that's unbelievable.
The worst thing is that it is increasing. Like the interannual data is constantly increasing. Now people are expecting for this year maybe to reach about 140 or 150% annual inflation.
140?
Yeah.
I haven't even heard that number. I heard like 104 maybe. That's crazy.
Yeah.
And I saw this firsthand, which is like even more insane to like see it firsthand and not just hear about it or read about it. So when I came to Argentina, it was like mid-April, and the first week I was there, I traded some money through a black market source, because you're not like, if you go through official government channels, like you're a total idiot because you're basically getting half of your money back. But I went through, like the dollar blue exchange rate, which is that's what they think is the real exchange rate. And each US dollar was worth about 392 pesos, right? So like, obviously when I came out of that exchange, I only exchanged like $100 and I was, like rolling in cash. It was crazy. But I went on that trip that I told you about through Northwest Argentina, and I'm like living my best life, just having a lot of fun, going to some really nice hotels, staying up in the mountains. And the last night we were there, I went to dinner, and the family that we were with said, the exchange rate is up to 490 now, which means it increased about 100 pesos to the dollar in 1 week that I was there, which is just like, for me, this sounds horrible, but for an American being there, that's totally beneficial, right? Because you get more money for your dollar, but for someone who actually lives there, it's awful. And it was really creepy to like watch the reaction to that, because it seemed like everyone was just used to it. Like no one seemed that scared.
Yeah, that's one of the main problems. Like many problems, like in Argentina, with all like the Peronist politics in between. Like everything, it's like exponential, like compared like to other Latin American countries.
Yeah.
And the main thing is that these problems have been going around for like decades. So yeah, it's really difficult as an Argentinian to get surprised because of a new economic crisis. It's like, personally, I'm 22 years old, and in my whole life, I've been living in one or another economic crisis. There's never been a time when we could say, oh, wow, the economy is roaring now. No, there's no such thing here. And that's why when any problem happens, even if it becomes worse, we don't even get like upset about it. And that's quite like endangering, because it seems like we have no bottom. And that's one of the main problems we have.
Yeah.
And the other thing we have like going on that you mentioned is like you feel like this sort of guilt, because now with all the exchange rates going on, like someone from abroad can get more benefit, but here we get poor. But the thing is that like here we are not so conscious about it's our fault and it's our responsibility to fix the situation back. Because that's the other like political escape, because we were talking about all these political issues, and the thing is, well, how can these politics keep getting elected and keep getting voted in the election, which is the most like insane thing.
People vote for it, yeah. It's hard to say that though, because it's the same here, right? Like, a situation happened in the United States to this woman, and essentially she got canceled all over social media, right? Because of a clip taken out of context where she was actually in the right. And everyone was like, oh, well, you voted for this, right? And it's like, well, not really, right? Like we have to have compassion for people, but once we have enough understanding and enough information about what is actually going on, which we can get into, because it does seem like Argentines really are grasping what is actually happening economically to their country, and there is a massive political wave that's coming. But like once you have access to that information, you kind of should start doing stuff about it. Like you can't keep voting in the same politicians who keep blaming inflation on what is it now? Psychological issues? That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. There's a politician in Argentina who is is it the president?
The president. It's literally the president.
He's blaming inflation on psychological issues. I'm sorry, honey, but there's no way you're going to see that dramatic of inflation because people are scared or something. I don't know. I don't know what he's thinking. But if that was the case, then anytime anyone was scared about the economy, we'd just see like rapid inflation. That's not how things work. Actually, could you tell us, how did it get so bad? Like, genuinely, what happened? Why is inflation so bad? Why is it now reaching 150% potentially? That's just mind-blowing.
Yeah, well, one of the main problems that we have here, basically, I think there are two, like one on the political level and another one on the economical level. On the political level, what I wanted to say about what you said about the president, that now it says there's some psychological mystery going around, but
that is victim blaming, literally.
Yeah, that's the
it's like it's your fault that inflation's happening to you.
Yeah, well, that's like really stupid. There's no other way to say it. But
yeah.
The thing is that our actual president, if you hear him about 10 years ago on national television, on like mainstream media, he would explain very clearly how inflation is a monetary phenomenon and how the inflation at that time should be worked out by the central bank, and the central bank should close its doors and stop printing. So the thing here is like...
Oh, so he knows.
Yeah, so the thing here with politicians is that they are not dumb. They know what they are doing. They just say stupid stuff on purpose. So, well, maybe...
remain in power, right?
Yeah, if as long as 30 or 40% of the population believes all the stupid things they say, that's fine by them because it's enough votes to win an election. That's all they are searching for. And well, that's one of the things that maybe rages me the most. But that's how things are right now. That's the political problem. But well, what happened economically? Basically, through the last 15 years, maybe, we started as a country spending way too much more than what the state earns through taxes. So we had this problem with the budget.
So you were spending more on social programs and other, military defense, whatever. It's mostly social programs, right?
It's mostly social programs, and also many like political spending, like in ministries and more government offices.
Yeah, supporting
and
the bureaucracy. Stuff. That makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
So you were spending too much on these things and not taking in enough taxes to cover all of it. Did the spending increase dramatically for some reason? Like what changed to where things just really, like the train got off the tracks?
Yeah, well, the thing is that this super big government spending at first was financed through debt. They were printing, but at a level that maintained inflation in 30%, 40, 50% a year, which is still a lot. So bad. But on Argentinian terms, it's ridiculous. But I'd say that if it was normal, because in Argentina it's like normal inflation the last 10 years has been around 30%. So, well, it is disastrous.
That is so bad. You guys have to understand, like, I don't think there's ever been a time where we've seen inflation get that bad. And that is like their standard operating procedure. Like SOP is 30% year-over-year inflation. That is so crazy. By the way, does the overspending sound familiar to you guys? Does running a deficit sound familiar? We have that problem too in America. It's very problematic. People don't think it's problematic though. People think we can just continue to run up the deficit.
As an Argentinian, it's not nice, like at all.
No.
So if you want, you can search literally like the annual inflation in Argentina, and you'll see it doesn't work out well.
Oh goodness.
So
yeah. How do you can't save. Like, how do people retire? That's one thing that like really blew my mind because, as an American, things can feel really cheap when you go there. I highly recommend traveling to Argentina, by the way. They would love your US dollars, and the people there are wonderful. I was lied to by the internet because the internet was like, okay, Argentines think they're better than everyone, da 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 da. That's not true. Argentines are very nice, very welcoming, and very intrigued by other people and other cultures. So I highly recommend. But one thing that just blew my mind was like the basic economics of everyday life, right? So like I would exchange money and then go to a restaurant and calculate backwards what it would be in US dollars. So I'd spend maybe like $5 to $10 on a really nice meal. But then doing the opposite calculation of like what percentage of the average Argentine's income would this meal be? And if you did the second step, like you didn't just stop at, oh, this is really cheap in US dollars, when you figured based on the average income of someone in Buenos Aires, which is what, like a few hundred a month? Is that correct?
Yeah, it's about like $400 a month, maybe, like the average salary. And the problem here is like most of things, not all things, but most things are like really cheap, but so are the salaries. So we've got like that situation in which
salaries are really low comparatively. Like they're not keeping up with inflation. Dude, going there put all of my problems in perspective because we complain about this a lot in America. Like, oh, my salary didn't keep up with inflation last year. It is like impossible for you guys to keep track of what's going on. Like you run your own business, you do tutoring. What is it like trying to price things when things are constantly like your money is being devalued every month? That can't be easy.
Yeah, no, it's no easy. Sometimes I have no idea what to ask for as a price. And the only way that I can have like a calculus in my head is thinking in US dollars. Like I literally think that I should price on about like $5 an hour, basically. So
how much is that in pesos?
Good question. It depends. Like
who knows?
Here,
it's
the thing is
since I've been there 2 weeks ago.
For the general public in the US, here in Argentina, the US dollar doesn't have like one special value that would be like normal in any country. Here we have about like between 15 to 40 different US dollar values. It depends on the category in the section. But we are going to go with the black market dollar, which is like
it's just as confusing as it sounds, by the way. All of the different prices. It's for like, oh, soybeans are this special rate, and T-shirts are this special rate. Like it's genuinely so weird. But
it's like really insane. I mean, I understand that it is like really difficult to explain because it has like basically no sense. But well, it's like a lot of measures like out of hand that the government makes in order to retain a couple extra dollars. But well, in the long term, it doesn't work out either way. So well, that's the main problem. But
so they're doing that rate not just to save face, but to essentially get more US dollars circulating in the economy.
Yeah, because
that was a big thing being talked about while I was there, was like, oh no, we're running out of US dollars.
The government is running out of reserves. So it makes whatever it takes to gain more dollars. Because the debt in Argentina is also so high, that's why they require like to last measure, which is money printing. And that's why through the pandemic onwards, money printing hasn't stopped at all. And interest rates, in order to like keep in touch with the high inflation, also keep raising. But what's the problem? If you raise interest rates, then you need more pesos to pay for those interest rates that people earn. So now you need to print even more money. We've reached a point.
Are they just
which,
artificially raising interest rates? It seems like everything, like in a normal economy, these things don't coincide, but Argentina just likes to do this and pretend that things are different ways. So what is the interest rate currly in Argentina?
Well, currently, I think, last week they raised the interest rate like again. They raise it. They've been raising it every 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Now it's about 97% annually. Yeah, as weird as it sounds, but yeah. So the thing is, then you need more pesos to pay for that almost 100% interest rates. So the printing capacity here has basically collapsed. There's no more space to print.
Aren't you literally like importing cash printed in other countries?
Yeah,
to keep up?
In the pandemic, the government asked Brazil to print more Argentinian pesos, and a couple of months ago, the government paid Malta and France to print more pesos.
That is so random, but can you imagine for a second that you are printing so much frickin' money that you can't even keep all of the printing in-house? That's how much money they are printing. And it's all to pay, I guess, for these social programs and wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. It's really, really hard to conceptualize for a lot of people how this impacts like the day-to-day lives of like, how do you save money? How do you buy things? How do you keep a budget? Like, none of that really made sense to me going in. Another thing that didn't make sense to me was like, how do people retire? You know, like, how do people's wages keep up? How do, like, don't people go on strike constantly for increased wages because inflation is just so out of control?
Yeah, well, here we have like lots of social protests. It's like an everyday scene, and it can be about any sector. And sometimes you can even blame them because, like the salaries, even of, doctors, like the salaries of doctors were around the poverty line. And it's like, it's really shameful.
The salaries of doctors were around the poverty line?
Yeah, sometime a couple of months ago, that's why they went on strike as well. So, but that's constantly, because even if they get, a 30% raise due to the inflation now, in 3 or 4 months' time, it's evaporated. It's like the same as nothing. So you have to protest, I guess. Yes, somehow.
Why? What precipitated all of this? Like, what happened? Did this start with Peronism and just got out of hand over the years? Because, like, this is what I want to communicate to American audiences is, like, Argentina is, to me, once I started reading about it, everything I was reading when it came to the policies that created this situation, I was like, that's America to a T. If you put America and American politics on crack cocaine, like that would be what Argentina is like. It's just like dialed up, because it's not explicitly a communist country, right? It's just, from what I understand, and I do want to ask you to like elaborate on this, little by little, over the years, over the decades, people have called for more and more and more and more government control over things, more spending, more protection for workers. I'm using air quotes because it actually hurts workers. That's my understanding of Argentine politics, is just people see a problem, they ask the government to come in and solve it. The government is run by children, so they write like really stupid laws. I'm sorry, I'm getting upset. They write laws that literally, if you look at them, like, oh, we want to bring the film industry more into Argentina. Let's ban any movie that's ever been produced outside of the U.S. That's not a real example, but that's literally what the laws are like. It's like this was written by a 5-year-old who consulted no one. How did all of this get started? Because, by the way, Argentina used to be in like the top 10 wealthiest countries in the world, like globally. Back a century ago in the early 1900s, Argentina was very similar to the U.S., even more so to Canada, and was going to outpace Canada in performance. And just, it was like, super sharp decline.
Yeah, the decline started after World War II, especially. So between like more interventionist governments and military governments, the situation didn't work out well. And, like we've always had like structural problems, to say it somehow, but the current situation is basically due to the last 20 years, in which basically the Kirchner governments, which were for about 16 years. In between, we had the opposition government from Macri, from 2015 to 2019. But the main issue was like that for so long time, in a big part due to Peronism, but also due to some opposition sectors, that the idea of big government and the idea of you can spend in an infinite way and you would have no problem at all, that idea concentrated like really much in the minds of people. And it's like, if the government is not spending, then it is because the government is a bad person. But in the imagination of the people, the government could spend like 100 million and it would be fine. Like, nobody asked the question, well, but where does government take the money from? So as long as this question is not asked in the first place, and also, of course, is not answered, then we should be absolutely fine.
Right.
But, well, that's the problem. Government takes money from people's pockets through taxes, or if not, by printing money. So, well, the situation has come to a point where the only alternative they have is to print money. So that's when inflation started escalating so much, and it reached us where we are today. Why? Well, because politicians think that if you want to win an election, instead of improving the lives of people, well, let's just give him a cash voucher of about 5,000 pesos, like saying, vote for me, I gave you money, look how good people I am. But
by the way, 5,000 pesos is like $10.
Yeah.
Just for people listening. Like, that's, maybe I have the math wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure it's about $10. That's, that's crazy. So, do you feel like people, like the generations that have, had their voices heard in the past 20 years, do you feel like they robbed your generation of your future? Because that seems to be what's happening here. Like, people put temporary Band-Aids on problems, but the Band-Aids were like poisonous.
Yeah, well, this reminds me of a quote from a Rand that I think she said, like, you can ignore reality, but you cannot ignore the consequences of ignoring reality. And I think it's just like we turn into that point. Like, now inflation is like so high. Like, you cannot say anymore like inflation's not a problem, or you can say it anymore like, oh yeah, the country is thriving, it may have its problem. Like, the economy is cracked, basically it's screwed. So that made like many people of my generation, like, I don't know if like the whole future of my generation is like crushed. But for about the next 5 or 10 years, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if the whole future, but at least a decade of our future is basically robbed. Yeah, and that's why so many people my age, if they have the opportunity, they just are going to live abroad or they go abroad because in their minds the main problem is, well, the situation is bad now. It may probably get worse in 2 years' time, but maybe in 10 years' time, it will still be worse. Like they don't
Right.
see any point of hope of the situation turning around. And that's
So
why
they're
they decide to
leaving.
leave.
Yeah, and something I noticed about Argentina, and I did meet several people whose children have left, is that family is like top tier importance to people. So maybe for us it's normal to leave home, but it seemed like a really, really like sad thing for a lot of parents. Like I feel
Yeah.
like a lot of parents there are grieving losing their kids who are now moving mostly to Spain is what I saw. Spain, Argentina, the US, if they speak English. Yeah, can you talk about that a little bit? Like what is it like? What are the costs of having to completely uproot your life if you want a good future?
Yeah, family speaking is like very, very important. Like when as an Argentina, we're talking like one thing is, yeah, we're traveling abroad for about 2 months to get to know country,
Mm-hmm.
do tourism. Okay, that's one thing. But when somebody says, well, I'm moving away, it's not because we really want to. It's not because something
Yeah.
like, oh, how it's so nice. No, it's not like that. And it's really hard, like for families, like, yeah, it's like almost like a tragedy, you see
Yeah.
people saying goodbye, like parents saying goodbye to their kids in the airports, and yeah, they're all crying, and it's not nice. And I don't know, like personally, for example, like of my closest friends, I would say like 80% plan on studying, finishing college, and as soon as they
Mm-hmm.
finish studying, they would say, well, I want to live abroad because I don't see a future
80,
in here.
80%?
Yeah, more or less. Uh, I would say around 80%.
I don't even know, like, doesn't that make the problems even worse? Like when you lose your entire labor force?
Yeah, that's one of the things
That is
that they are also discussing here,
unreal.
because all the qualified people go away. So what
Yeah. And they
happens
receive
to the
free
people remaining?
education,
But
right?
but yeah, like the only reason like my generation is staying is because on relative terms, education is still good quality and
Yeah.
it still gives you many opportunities. But afterwards, it's like you're studying, I don't know, 5 years or 10 years after finishing high school. You are really a skilled labor,
Mm-hmm.
and afterwards, if you stay here, maybe you don't get a job, or maybe you get a job in which your salary is basically almost an insult. So
Yeah.
it's like, why would I effort so much if in return the rewards I would get, I wouldn't even know if that would be enough to sustain a family, for example.
Right.
So
So
then
like the
why
most
risk that
basic,
part? So
yeah, like the most basic foundation of society is kind of crumbling
so
because of the economy. This is what
yeah.
I mean by like, conservatives in America have started to believe that the free market is not as important and that, protectionism, which for those of you listening who are protectionists, that is one of the chief causes of economic decline in Argentina, protectionism. But like economic problems rot away the family structure and the family unit as well. Like it does pull apart families in a very real way. I would say like I kind of noticed that that was the only thing keeping people like helping people through, is just like the really strong support that I saw. And I was only there for a month, but I got to be around like real people in Argentina. Like I wasn't just, off doing my own thing. So I got to have a lot of really like real conversations with people. And like I did see that being as one of the things I respect the most about Argentines and the way your society is structured is like, your family units are multi-generational, and when you have people over for dinner, like you set out all the plates, like people still believe in hosting and getting together with their families. And here it's just so different, but that aspect of society could change pretty dramatically just because people feel like forced into a corner and feel like they have to leave. I'm sure a lot of them may come back, but like my boyfriend's dad, he left and they moved here and they aren't back. Like they're not going back to Argentina. You know what I mean? They visit, but they're not moving back, and it's really sad. Like it was really hard for them to be away from family. So, yeah. This is very sad. But I did also kind of come away from the trip feeling really hopeful, in part because of you, because, it's really inspiring to see other people my age, you're a little bit younger than me, out there fighting the good fight in Argentina. But you're not alone. I've noticed I met so many young people who are voting for a like radically libertarian candidate there, like radically pro-free market. I love it. How did that happen? Because that is not the case here.
Yeah, well, basically, I think that the economic situation turned so bad in the last 3 years that I don't know if for the first time, but probably one of the first time that like people is taking economics seriously, because like historically you
love it.
Yeah, like historically you
Finally.
there has to, something good has to come out of all this stuff.
Yeah.
So like the thing is, when situation turns really bad, like no one can avoid the crisis, well then people start talking, okay, why is this going on?
Yeah.
Like maybe
what's the deal here?
printing money is not such a good idea. Or so like mainstream media starts talking about these problems. Like they never talk about it. Like, I don't know, 10 years ago, maybe television would talk about, the inflation, it's a little high, but you wouldn't have anyone speaking like, why is inflation happening? Like, no, it didn't
They would
matter.
just be speaking about the problem, not the causes.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. And at what point did libertarian thought leaders kind of get into that conversation? Did they force the conversation, or was there a conversation that was starting to happen and they just were like, okay, this is the time we start talking about this?
Yeah, well, I think it was like a little bit sort of forced or impulse, especially, by the candidate, which is of the Libertarian Party right now, which is Javier Milei. He started appearing in television. At the beginning, it was like a marginal public figure, but after
like kind of
inflation
out there, fringe, like like only a few people like really listen, but like he's kind of
like nobody cared about him at the beginning. But I think like the crisis like got so worse, and especially in the inflation aspect, and I think due to the pandemic also, that people started saying like, okay, we've had all this huge big government going around, the concept of social justice and the social plans and social help and everything by the government has been going around for 15, 20 years. And we really had like bad results and worsening results in 20 years. So like this other candidate like constantly saying, well, the problem is you spend too much, you have a deficit in your budget, you require too many printing, government's money is from people's jobs and people's taxes, basically. So, like, money doesn't grow out of the trees. So, with that concept, like, like other people or other politicians from other parties, like they were saying like, no, it's not because of that or whatever, but eventually they would like get like stamped to a wall. So at that point, I think that Milei's ideas and push, like, and from many other people, started like getting on in people's mind. And this is, I think, the good thing, especially in young people and especially in adolescents. And with the whole surge of social media, like here where we are speaking, and YouTube and everything, is like many people my age become more curious, like, well, why are we always in a crisis? Like, there has to be some reason. So then you start seeing like, hey, wait, we had this big government 20 years, it didn't work, and they are saying, because the problem is big government. So that's when people started shifting. So now you've got like, I don't know, a third of the population under 30 in Argentina who is much more liberalism sympathizer that you would have before.
Yeah. That is such a breath of fresh air, because it seems almost impossible right now for that to happen in the United States. And I really hope we don't get so far into an economic crisis that that's when people start waking up. But it's so interesting because, like, at first, when you're surrounded by lies and deceit, the truth does seem fringe, right? When you're first hearing this, it's like, oh, that's kind of crazy. Like, I don't know. What do you mean, like, freedom in the market? What do you mean that we shouldn't have all of these, like, social welfare programs and all of this spending? Like, this is just how it's done. Like, this is social justice. That mindset has totally taken over and infected the U.S., which is why I thought, like, having you on would be so good. One, because you can speak from a perspective that's relatable, but also because the same mindset that created the problems in Argentina has young people and old people in a frickin' chokehold in the United States. And it's really, really scary. And I've honestly started seeing Peronist thought infect the right now. Because Peronism isn't a left-wing or right-wing ideology, right? It's way more populist than anything. And really, it's about politicians making coalitions, bringing home the bacon so that they can stay in power. Does this sound familiar? Yes, it's every politician here except for maybe a handful, right? But we are starting to get a little train off the tracks here. And I don't think we have to go full Monty economic crisis, like half of the population under the poverty line, like Argentina, for us to start taking lessons from what is happening in other countries. I do, by the way, think that Argentina can be saved. It's going to take some real effort, but I just left feeling so encouraged because even random people, like, don't know that I'm political or that I talk about these issues, were talking to me about these issues and we're like really gung-ho for liberalism. And liberalism in Argentina is classical liberalism, aka libertarianism, freedom, you know? And it's just so crazy to think that, like, so many young people, a third of young people, are like gung-ho and passionate and fired up about these ideas. That is like just the most encouraging, crazy thing I've ever heard in my life. And it's true. It's not even like, I'm glad you're on here saying it, because I've been telling everyone, I've been like shouting from the rooftops, like, there's a libertarian revolution happening. It's just, I really do think that things can change, but with the correction that is going to have to take place, I do think it's going to be hard for a little while.
Yeah, it's not going to be easy. Literally Argentina has come to a point where adopting the US dollar as a national currency is on the discussion. And personally, it is difficult even for me to know how can that be implemented and which would be the consequences of that, because it would be a solution to inflation, but the thing is, how many dollars do we really have? How is all the procedure? Because you have also like to get to understand that you have lots of political parties and lots of labor unions that are a really fierce opposition. So even if, I don't know, say a candidate of Milei style wants to make like good measures, he would have to handle like a really fierce opposition. So that's another thing.
That is like the main question I have is there are some big solutions out there thought up by really, really intelligent, incredible people. But yeah, the opposition is crazy. And you're right, it is labor unions, okay? Like that is one of the main problems there are the labor unions, which not trying to come for them, but I'm just saying, asking for special favors all the time is robbing like other people of their futures and robbing your kids of their futures. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Are you excited for the election or like nervous or?
Well, yeah, like basically like my country above all things brings like uncertainty. Like you don't know what's going to happen next month or in the next 2 months. Yeah. Like I hope that this actual government finishes its mandate and leaves as soon as possible, because like they don't even have like the will to make anything serious about solving inflation. So the main problems here are inflation. Well, of course, all the reasons linked to inflation, like the high spending and everything, and also the protectionist measures, like the ban on imports, the high taxes placed on exports even, which is like really weird, but it's been going on for around like a really long time.
Weird.
Yeah. I don't know, like maybe the crop plantations, in order to export grain to other countries, they may have like, I don't know, a 30-50% tax over exports, not on imports. So
what?
So yeah.
Do they not want these people to sell their grains? What's going on?
Yeah, it's really weird to understand, but like
they want to keep it in Argentina.
Yeah, like the government intervenes all the economy, so all the economy now depends on the government, especially.
Of course.
So what does the government need to run? Well, they need dollars. So if that crashes enterprises or that favors them, they don't really care much. They just need dollars. So how do they make more dollars? Well,
by taxing exports.
All around. Yeah.
Or creating a fake exchange rate that's, twice as expensive for Americans to buy things. Yeah. Again, with the exchange rate, I don't typically promote crime publicly, but the Argentine government has essentially turned basically everyone into a criminal. It's really strange. And there is a certain element or culture of, there's certain laws like that people just ignore and don't pay attention to because they're just so ridiculous. Yeah. Like they're so ridiculous. On the subject of protectionism, I think this is a great opportunity to explain what protectionism is and how it manifests in Argentina because, and we do have to wrap up, but I think this one is so important, and so it's a good place to end the show, because there are so many calls currently in the United States for us to adopt these really extreme protectionist measures to keep industry within the United States. So the line of logic typically goes, okay, we want to protect certain industries or certain companies within an industry from competitors. So this could be, let's say, a bunch of florists within a state saying, oh, we're going to form a florist licensing board and we're going to keep other flower people out of being able to sell flowers, and we're going to make them get a license from the government. And it's a way to limit their competition so that they don't, have all of these people competing for resources. Governments do the same thing within countries. And that's a big thing that's happening in Argentina. So what are a few examples of wacky protectionist laws in Argentina and how that manifests for just everyday people?
Yeah, well, many basic products are literally blocked. Like a local company in Argentina may ask for raw materials or for finished products to import, and maybe the government office says, no, not right now. You have to wait 2 months. You have to wait 3 months, or no at all until, I don't know, some sort of protest comes out. Because why? Because if you import, the government has to take dollars out in order to import, because of all these apparatus they've made in order to retain dollars. So the problem with the blockage of imports or even exports is that if you don't open to commerce, basically you will have low quality products, really low quality products. Well, for example, we were talking some time ago. I personally play tennis. I like playing tennis, so I wanted to buy a new pair of shoes. I went to a Nike store in Buenos Aires, like a huge store. I'm talking about Nike. It's a really common brand. So, when I asked for the seller if they had tennis shoes, he told me, no, we don't have any tennis shoes at all.
Nike, the physical Nike store did not have tennis shoes. And it wasn't because they sold out of them.
Yeah.
It's because they are not allowed to import them.
Yeah, exactly. So I asked him, why? Yeah, it's because of the ban of imports. We can't bring to the country tennis shoes, soccer shoes, basketball shoes. It's everything's really blocked. So when things are so scarce, prices rise like a real deal.
Right.
So you get more expensive things on a so much poorer quality. So
the clothing shopping there was subpar. No offense. It was that's really crappy quality, but it was still really expensive. It was more expensive than US prices, except everything looked like it was going to fall apart. What?
Yeah, it is a really weird situation, and it doesn't even help the local companies here. Because there's always this myth that, because it is to save national industry. Basically, not in many cases. Because
really.
you promote an industry which is not competitive locally on one stand. But even if the industry is competitive, you've got another problem, which is ban on imports. It also means ban on raw materials. And maybe 90% of products are made here in Argentina, but you need to import about 10% of some raw products. They can't import them, so they can't even produce enough. There's a really, that I saw yesterday, I'm still searching on it because it really made me bad about it. On the last few days, the pet food, the dog food, the food of that my dogs eat, it's been many days in which my dogs don't want to eat the food. And it was really weird, why? So then I started searching on the internet, there's anything wrong with pet food. The thing is that pet food in Argentina, they need to import microingredients, which are a combination of vitamins, amino acids, and flavor tastes. And that's the stuff. When you don't import these microingredients, the pet food doesn't have flavor, so animals don't want them. So basically...
It's a slippery slope. It is a slippery slope. first it's putting a high import tax on imported goods, and then it's like,
yeah, so like
everything just
from
gets worse.
something
Yeah.
so that may seem like trivial, so yeah, let's protect national industry. Not only national industry is not protected, your products get worse, and it
Yeah.
may even affect like your most beloved animals, like your dogs.
Aw.
So yeah.
Someone save the puppies from their flavorless food. Well, Noé, this has been amazing. I want to give you space to give any parting thoughts. We could literally talk for like 3 more hours about this, but maybe in a few weeks we can come on and do a part 2, because
Sure,
I'm sure
I
people
would
have a
love
ton
to,
of questions. But yeah, do you have any parting thoughts?
Yeah, sure. Well, thank you so much for everyone who's listening. And the main message that I want to give is like ideas matter. It is important to communicate them, because if a lot of people, like general people, gets to understand like the main message that it is really important to maintain a sound economy, then if people's thoughts on that stance change, then politicians sooner or later will start shifting the discourse as well. I think that that's the main good thing that's happening in Argentina. So in order to avoid this like big economic crisis, you have like the opportunity to spread and understand the economic lessons. So in that sense, like it's like, well, but why would it matter? I'm just one person. What could I do? No, you can do really a lot. Like if, I don't know, 10 people or 30 people understand what are the causes of inflation, maybe in a couple of years, half the population will understand it, and maybe the inflation trauma can be solved. So we don't have to lose hope on that, because I think that Argentina is an example that ideas are possible to change, and maybe can change the problems that we got into. So,
wow, so inspiring. Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. This has really been such a great treat. Are there any social media channels that people should follow you? And you guys should absolutely follow him and, stay up to date with all things Argentina, because there is an election coming up and it's going to be super interesting.
Yeah, well, I got my Instagram account that it's Kaplan /Noé, that I constantly upload videos speaking about economic stuff. So maybe most of the stuff is in Spanish, but maybe if there are some English-speaking people who want to follow me, you can contact me and I can make some content in English. I've got no problem.
Yes.
So well,
let's do it.
Basically, I'm there. I'm also on YouTube uploading the same content. So if you want to follow me there, then you can give it a look.
Awesome. Yeah, well, thank you so much for coming on. Hopefully we get to have you back again, maybe in studio next time. That would be dope. Yeah. And you can follow me at Liberty Anders. And you guys, make sure to like, subscribe, and leave us a comment. Ask a question. Maybe Noé will be in the comments answering.
Sure.
And I can come in and answer too. But yeah, thank you guys so much and have an amazing week. Bye.
See ya.